Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about tonight. We'll be talking about real empathy for the handicapped. Real empathy for the handicapped. That'll be explained as we get further into the show, further into the conversation. I think it's important because I discovered that my guest, Keith Faulkner, knows something about real empathy for the handicapped. And he'll be talking about that and a bunch of other stuff as it comes up. And how you feeling right now?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's interesting to wait and see what happens here.
Yeah. Are you nervous?
A little bit. I mean, who wouldn't be? First time on TV and all.
Well, you're going to do a good job, I know.
I try.
Yeah. So, and you know, the show goes into two major parts. The first half is we talk about who you are and your history and whatever else about you, so people will get an idea where you're coming from when you talk about empathy and those kinds of things in the second half of the show. And I didn't tell you that sometimes I'll have a guest who become so fascinated with how they look on the screen over there, and they, instead of talking to me, they talk to the screen, and they don't look too pretty good. No, anyhow, you'll be doing fine.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's start off with, if I were to ask your best friend, who is Keith? What would your best friend say? Be your best friend. Say, Keith is what?
Probably one of the biggest workers he's ever seen. He works, does nothing but work, it seems.
Uh-huh.
Sundown, 7 days a week.
Yeah. When were you born?
59.
59.
Yeah. We came here from Santa Monica
Uh-huh.
to Garden Home and bought a house. We were temporarily going to be at this house, but ended up there lifelong.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of interesting. Dad passed shortly after getting into this house, and so Mom was left raising the two boys in this house. So this is what became of my life.
So you were born in California?
Yeah.
And you came up here?
And came up
went
here.
to Garden Home?
Yeah, I went to Garden Home School, Woodford Elementary, and then Beaverton High.
Now, I usually have one or two trick questions.
Yeah.
You ready for your first one?
Sure.
Why were you born?
A good question. I've been asking myself that every day when I wake up. Why am I here? What is the purpose? And yet I just know I'm late for my next job. So I get up and run.
So, you feel good about your life so far?
Yeah, I've had a very interesting life, and yeah, it's there's pitfalls along the way. Things I regret, but you work through them.
If I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, you can say, I don't want to answer that. On rare occasions, somebody doesn't like a question I'm asking, and I tell them, don't answer it.
Yeah, okay.
You ready?
You sure?
Do you have a religion nowadays or not?
Well, I believe I see God in everything. I believe in God.
Really?
But I don't believe in needing to pay people to worship. I don't believe in that. I think that's more of a cult.
Okay. I feel similarly, I think.
Yeah, I don't go to church necessarily. I don't abstain from it because I dislike it. Just doesn't fit my lifestyle. I see God all the time in everything I do.
Everything you do?
It seems. The house I showed you a picture of just shortly.
Yeah?
Yeah, that house. I see what He has been able to create through us. And it's a marvelous thing, I think.
And you're going to do something with that house?
I've got to make it pretty again.
Pretty again.
Yeah.
And how do you make it pretty again?
But by taking the flaws away
Mm-hmm.
and returning it back to its normal stateliness.
And there's God in that?
Yeah, I believe so. In my abilities to do that.
Uh-huh.
And he's given me those abilities, and that's what I continue to do, so.
Did you ever go to church when you were small?
Yes, I did. Burlingame Baptist.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, baptized at St. John Fisher. And so, yeah, I spent some time in church. As of late, I have a very close friend who's Mormon.
Uh-huh.
And have been seeing a lot of good the Mormons have been doing.
You bet.
So, yeah, I don't see anything wrong in that. It's just, I still have a personal problem with paying for religion.
I do too.
So,
how about your formal education? You go to school?
yeah, went through senior year. I did quit short of, and I was making good money as a kid, so I thought, well, I don't need to go back to school. I just keep expanding upon what I had been given. So I started doing that and gave up school.
Yeah, and your life has been successful.
So, well, it's always been kind of behind. I didn't lead a rich life, you might say. I had 3 kids. They all graduated high school. They're all independent. They all have their own lives. I must have done something right, I guess.
I think so. Where are they now?
My eldest daughter lives in Newburgh, has my 2 grandkids.
Yeah.
My middle daughter lives in Kauai, Hawaii. Just went through the flood here this last week.
Oh, yeah.
And has moved on in Hawaii to another location, her own place for the first time in 7 years.
You talk to her occasionally?
And yeah, I talk to her just about daily here lately.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was kind of scary thinking about your daughter being in a flood like that on an island.
You bet,
So,
bet.
yeah, I was talking to her daily. And my son, he lives in McMinnville, and yeah, he's doing well with his new business that he's been working for.
What does he do?
Automated robotronics. He's doing one of his clients is a Tesla plant in Reno, Nevada.
Uh-huh.
He does the robotronics for their battery manufacturing.
You must be pretty smart, eh?
Well, he told me a long time ago he wasn't the village idiot, and I had problems at first when he said that, thinking maybe he was referring to me being the village idiot. Well, in any case, yeah, no, he moved on to get his education, and his education proved that he's done a good job.
Mm-hmm.
So he's living
Do you
the life.
have any other education that you can talk about at all?
No, it was pretty grim in the way of going to school and college and such. I took a couple courses at General Motors Training Center because I like cars. But I didn't go very far with that either because I found it didn't pay much.
How about the School of Hard Knocks? Did you get any good education
Well,
there?
that, of course, you know, beginning as a young man trying to break into construction, I wanted to be a subcontractor, my own employer. So I was at the age of 14.
Really?
Yeah, I rode my bicycle with my tools strapped to it to the first drywall job I did in Garden Home.
Really?
Yeah.
And you've been drywalling all these years?
Yeah, well, and that and many other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, drywall is just one part of it.
Any other things that you've done in your work life worth mentioning or not?
Not really. I mean, I've got to go out of the country to do this type of work, but other than that, not really. I mean, it's just one mall after another, or one house after another, or one apartment complex, or one school, or one motel, or one something or other.
How do you get your jobs?
Well, I was in the union for many years in Portland here. I did Pioneer Place Mall and several of the other big things downtown, but kind of grew tired of that. I did a few jails. And yeah.
So what did you advertise yourself as, a drywaller, or what kind of job title did you have?
Well, I don't really. It's like a handyman. I pretty much do anything and everything. Drywall is my forte, but reality is I started roofing before I did drywall. So I was a roofer first, and then a drywaller.
Did you fall off the roof?
I jumped off, but I didn't fall.
Who was chasing you?
Nobody chasing me. It was lunchtime. You want to see a dead come to life, be here at 5.
Yeah. So, where's your mom and dad?
Well, Dad passed in '65.
So it's a while ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Mom, of course, passed in 2000. She was pretty much the caretaker of the family. I mean, she gave us the roots of what we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, of course, he was disabled. So
How was he disabled?
Well, they were uncertain as to how it came about, but they didn't diagnose him being disabled till the 3rd grade. And it was due to his vision. First of all, didn't know he couldn't see. So, in fact, then they got glasses. And after they determined he could see, then, of course, it was a matter of he couldn't put A and B and C together in the alphabet. And so apparently from these derivatives, they deemed him handicapped.
Developmentally
handicapped, yeah. Right.
Yeah. And he was older than you, wasn't he?
Yeah, by 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he went to special ed classes. And of course, in the same school district, just different schools. So he was down the street from me in high school. And so that was kind of odd, you know, not being in the same school, but being really close.
You looked after him?
Well, there wasn't a whole lot of looking after him. I was looking out for the others.
What others?
Anybody he'd come in contact with. He loved baseball and he loved football, but he kind of confused the two. Anybody with the ball was it. Baseball, football, didn't matter. They were getting tackled. He didn't want to be the first baseman with a baseball, because he's going to get you.
And he doesn't live too far from here, does he?
No, he lives in Forest Grove, 190, well, let's see, what was that? 215th, I believe. So it's not very far.
Yeah. You talk to him from time to time?
You know, it has been a few years, but I talked to him recently, tried to ask him if he'd come on the show, and he wasn't interested in that. So it wasn't something him and his wife are even interested in. I don't have the same following, you might say.
Sure, sure. And talk a little more about your work. It's hard to ask about drywalling. I never knew drywalling till I hung out with you, looking over your shoulder, because I had the pipes in my home replaced because they were galvanized and they were falling apart. And then a bunch of contractors came in and replaced them with a new plastic pipe. And then you were one of the contractors who patched the walls up where they pulled the old pipe out and put the new one in. And you call you a drywaller, and then you put, what is that?
Sheetrock mud and tape.
Mud and tape and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, paper mache is otherwise known.
It's just incredible what you can do with these holes in the wall all over the place.
Well,
without exaggeration, it's just what you can do with the tape and all the stuff you do.
Yeah, well, it's an art form, sort of.
Oh, yes, it is.
You have to. It took me many years to get good at it. I wasn't born with that trade. I started roofing, and I would go try the drywall because it rains in Oregon. I didn't like that so much. So I would go inside and try the drywall. Problem is, I wasn't real good at it, so I would quit doing that, and I'd go back to roofing. I did that for several years.
But now you're a master at what you do.
Well, it's because I was really angry not being able to get it right. And so I kept going back, kept going back.
You couldn't get any better than you do it now.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I know. I saw what you do, yeah. And you have any children or grandchildren?
Yeah, I've got 2 grandkids, Mikey and Lily Lynn. They're in McMinnville with Newburgh with my daughter and son-in-law. Yeah, 17, 15.
So, do you have any memories about when you and your brother were growing up together? Any thoughts about what happened when he was small and as you grew up together?
Well, sure. I mean, there's all kinds of things. I got my first stitches behind movies that he would love to see the bar fight scenes in. He'd see them bust the whiskey bottles over the other guys' heads. He tried doing that with me. Of course, I was 3.
Oh, you were that young.
Yeah, I got my
He
first
hit you in the
stitches.
head with a
root beer bottle. Yeah, I got my first stitches then.
So you had some more adventures like that with him as you were growing up?
Well, certainly. I mean, there was all kinds of things that came along inadvertently. Playing football out inside, that was probably the most educational. Because anybody with the football, the quarterback, it didn't matter who, even if it was on his team. He had the ball, he was getting tackled, because that's all he knew, was tackle that guy.
You laugh about it now. As you look back on it, it was kind of fun, huh?
Yeah, well, you couldn't have him on your team because it just didn't get anywhere. Yeah, it was interesting.
Does he like you? Does he like you today?
Yeah. I'm too much of a stranger to him. I don't talk to him near enough, but my life's been bouncing from the coast, living at the coast. And so a long time I had spent away, so I didn't get to talk to him for 10 years at a time. So that was kind of tough.
So you live at the coast now?
No, I live here in the valley now.
I know.
Yeah. I had lived at the coast, though, for 20 years plus, off and on, bouncing from here to there, because I had various things here to do.
I think you mentioned earlier before about something that leads me to believe that people are not empathetic in our society anymore. Like they see your brother who's disabled, and they don't give him any special consideration.
Well, it's not so much that they don't give him the special consideration, it's that the people that try to help don't do it in a very good way. They want to baby him, and of course he's 60. He's hardly a baby, but they still talk to him in that baby voice and the coddling way, and that demeanors his abilities, and then he gets upset about that and doesn't want to talk to you anymore. So it's real hard for people to come across properly to the handicapped.
For them to appreciate where he's coming from.
They just want to be treated normally.
Normally. He wants to be treated normally.
Yeah, they don't want to be coddled. They don't want to be talked to like a baby or an infant or somebody's infidel. They want to be talked to like a normal person.
Aren't there a few societies or cultures in the world where it seems to be traditional, where the ordinary people treat people like your brother with a little more understanding of what's going on? They don't laugh at him or be mean to him?
Well, there's in some places. Here in the U.S., though, I see that there's a lot of groups that want to help but don't know how. They do it the wrong way. Sort of like the disaster relief is in the same realm of they want to help but they don't know how, and they do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a common thread, and I don't know how to place it exactly, but this common thread weaves through the society, such as you look at the homeless on the curb and it makes you angry that they're homeless and they're in your city or on your street or maybe in your backyard, and you don't know what to do because you call the police and nobody knows what to do. It's a nowhere, no-win situation. The best they can do is come up with these temporary spots, and they herd them into these temporary spots just to kick them out a few months later. It's a nowhere, no-win situation.
So what do you do when you see somebody who's worse off than you?
Well, generally, I'm not in any position to help myself. But when I see people that are trying to help, and they put their best foot forward just to get in their own way and create more trouble than they're trying to fix, putting them in a temporary place that's going to fail isn't really a fix. It's kind of a Band-Aid, and it's not getting anything done.
Yeah.
And that's where I see when they're trying to help my brother or somebody like that. They don't have any knowledge of how to do it.
How does that make you feel when you see that happening?
Well, it's an angerful. It makes you angry because, in fact, you know that there's a great need needed, and the abilities are there. It's just a matter of putting the abilities with the people and how to arrange it, I guess. The biggest thing with the arrangements is that they want to put them on a welfare situation. Well, that just means you and me and everybody else are going to pay for that. I'd like to see them put them in a self-sustaining situation where they take care of their own.
You think that's possible?
Well, of course. We have nothing in the way of disaster preparedness, really, in the world. We just got new tsunami warning signs down at the beach, and they point uphill. And I asked one of the Marines doctors at the Hatfield Marine Science Center, and he said in a cataclysmic event, the mountains will be coming down to reach the ocean. There's no getting out. But if you were 5 miles out to sea, you wouldn't know that was a tsunami you just went over in a boat. So it's like, okay, these things are pointing uphill, but then in fact, the mountains are coming down to reach the sea, so there's no way of getting out where those signs are pointed. I got no idea as to why they think that's a evacuation route.
So you like boats?
Well, I do. Yeah, I spent a lot of time fishing and out in the ocean.
What kind of fishing? Commercial or just for fun?
No, it started out as just for fun, but then I found out commercial had no limits. That's fun with no limits. So yeah, I took on the commercial thing. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And you said you work 7 days a week?
Well, I say that because, in fact, otherwise I'm bored. You know, the grandkids don't want anything to do with me. They got their own lives, and my kids are so busy they ain't got no time for me. So it's like I got to keep myself busy, or otherwise I just go stir crazy. You know.
Yeah. You think of anybody in your past that you looked up to or you felt really good about? Any names come to mind? Like for me, my heroes were Jesus and Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa and people like that. Do you have any people?
There was a lady from ARC who was my brother's, I don't know, and she was from ARC. She was a supervisor for the retired citizens. What do you call that when they're being
I don't think of the name.
Yeah, I can't think of it either. Anyway, but she worked for ARC, and she was what I would consider an angel. Association of Retired Citizens.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and my brother's. Anyway, yeah, she I would consider to be an angel.
Why is that?
Well, she took her life pretty much, and she has placed it in taking care of these people, and she has done this ever since I can remember her taking care of my brother's case. Case manager.
Case manager,
yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so she had managed my brother's case throughout as long as I can remember. And she still does. And I know that she's got to be retired. But in fact, she must do this just out of being a nice person.
Yeah.
And, you know, so dedicated. That's the kind of a person I think, yeah, is like an angel.
You don't know many people like that, huh?
No, I don't. And I've approached her several different times about what I'd like to do or have done, and she'd say, good luck with that. Sounds like a great idea, good luck with that.
Yeah.
It's like, darn.
Do you ever talk to her anymore?
I haven't for years, but it was probably 4 or 5 years ago I talked to her last. Yeah, my brother was trying to get a hold of me at that time, and so I went through her to get a hold of him. Yeah, she's an angel.
So she was that way with people who need that special attention?
Yeah.
And she didn't treat people like they were
No, I mean, she treated them like they were her kids. And there wasn't any babying them. I mean, your mother didn't necessarily baby you when things came down. Mom was the one to set you straight. Well, that's what she does, sets him straight.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to his doctor's appointments, he takes care of business through her.
What's her name? What'd you call her?
You know, I can't remember her name right out of the gate.
Nope.
I cannot.
And you think she'll ever see you on television?
I don't think so,
Okay.
but I don't know. God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, we'll tell her how to watch you on TV.
Yeah.
When this is over later on. Anybody else come to mind that you admire or look up to?
No, not necessarily.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you know, God is the only one to get me out of the trouble I get myself into.
Uh-huh.
So that would probably be the only one.
Remember some times where you got yourself in trouble and
Yeah, and there was no logical reason for me to get out of it, and I did.
But God
I must have had a different idea.
So there's a power greater than you.
Yeah, there's definitely something greater than I ever thought about being, because wow, yeah, it's surprising.
You believe in reincarnation?
I want to come back as a poodle.
Why a poodle? That's a
Oh,
dog.
I know, but they get treated like God. Have you ever seen the way poodles are treated? I mean, they have their own name. Yeah, their own hairdos. I mean,
But you're a masculine man.
Yeah, well, you know.
A masculine man don't like a poodle. You
yeah,
gotta
well,
have
you try to be a Saint Bernard or a German Shepherd, you're not getting out in very good, you know.
a Labrador Retriever. That's how I'm going to come back.
Labrador Retriever, that's, yeah, but you gotta like water.
they just smile all the time. The tail
I
always
see.
wagging.
Yeah, and that long hair too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, poodle. Yeah.
Did you ever
that's
have a
funny.
dog?
Yeah, I've had several. Last one was a short-haired English Springer,
Oh yeah.
Cocoa Dot.
Mm-hmm.
She was a beautiful little dog. We took care of the family. She adopted the kids. We never had to put a leash on that dog. It'd never leave the kid's sides. So in fact, you know, when the kids went anywhere, the dog went with them. Didn't matter where.
It's amazing how dogs have far more sense than many humans do.
It's one of those things, yeah. It's funny.
I remember my first dog, Rocky. When I was sick, I had emergency appendectomy and tonsillitis, and when I'd come out of the hospital and come back home, Rocky would be waiting for me, and I was in New Orleans growing up, and he hung out under my bed as I was on the sun porch waiting for this to heal, and he just, if I moved anywhere, he was right behind me. Rocky, my favorite dog. I'll never forget him.
Yeah, no, animals are definitely, Tina Marie was a cat that we brought from California, long-haired Persian, and it was Dad's cat. Well, Dad had broke his neck and was in the hospital for about 3 months before he passed.
Uh-huh.
Well, this cat didn't have any idea, but died 3 days after Dad died.
3 days after.
Yeah, 3 days after Dad died, the cat died.
Man.
And of no real apparent reason.
Yeah. Well, let's take a little break here and catch our breath.
Yeah.
Then we'll come back and talk some more
Yeah.
about stuff. All right, Mr. Control. Okay, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about tonight. We've been talking about real empathy for the handicapped. And we talked about that a little bit. We'll probably talk about it some more because I think it's really important for human beings to be aware of loving fellow humans, even those who are handicapped, and to treat them on a level of some recognition that it doesn't demean them or doesn't take them overboard with something that they can't do, but to respect them. I think about remember the movie Little Big Man?
No.
Anyhow, it was a white man who was raised by the Indians, and he was living on a reservation, but there were Indians all over the place doing their thing, going about their chores and whatever. And there was one Indian who always walked backwards.
Oh, yeah,
Remember that?
yeah.
And because all the other Indians recognized him as this is what he wanted to do. It was okay with them. They didn't ridicule him or put him down or tease him or anything else.
Right.
And the point being, if human beings are that loving and concerned about fellow humans and not find something wrong with them.
Yeah. Well, not labeling them as being wrong.
Not labeling the well put.
Yeah. They label handicapped as handicapped and therefore set them on a path of surrender. They can't do anything, they can't be anything, they can only be handicapped because we've labeled them handicapped. That's wrong.
I think there's a few movements around the country that are looking at treating handicapped people as human beings rather than some object.
Yeah.
And they have Olympics for the handicapped and all sorts of other things.
Special Olympics, yeah.
Special Olympics, yeah, and that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. Supposedly our smartest individual in the world was handicapped with MS.
Mm-hmm.
And
who was that? Do you remember who that was?
well, no, I can't remember his name right now. Doctor, can't remember.
Yeah. Okay.
But he is one of the smartest, supposedly, individuals in the world right now.
Yeah.
And he was stricken with MS.
And then there have been movies through the years now and then will come out really excellent. Remember Rain Man?
Yeah, Rain Man. He's
Now,
autistic.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he had special talents and abilities that were beyond the average or the normal.
Right. Right, and there's those things in every aspect of disability. There's also the possible sides that are adverse to that. I mean, film industry has been using autistic people to decipher flaws in their movies and in their filmings.
Really?
Yeah, and the autistic people are able to focus well enough for a long enough period of time that they can detect these small individual flaws in the films that they're being made, and so they're utilizing the autistic people in that.
I hadn't heard that. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Yeah, well, everybody does. I mean, I am too, every day.
Yeah, so you remember any experiences when you were growing up with your brother as time went by? It seems like, I'm guessing, that you were spending so much time looking after your brother until you didn't have much time to have your mom and dad looking after you.
Well, it's, first of all, that went by at a young age for me. So in fact, there wasn't too much leaning on Dad for anything, but Mom, of course, had her hands full with trying to, first of all, be a nurse, which she was at the time for the VA, and then having to say goodbye to her career to raise us kids because Dad had been doing it. Well, when Dad passed, then Mom had to take it over and give up her
Double
career.
duty, huh?
Well, at first she was, but then gave up the double duty because it became too much, and then eased into just being mom and raising kids.
Mm-hmm.
But the alcoholism took a big toll on that too. So I don't know. She just got a way to be more of an alcoholic, or was truly just into raising kids. I don't know.
So she drank?
Oh yeah, heavy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did your dad drink?
Well, supposedly that's why they moved here, was to get him away from his cronies that would take him away for drinking every night.
Uh-huh.
I pretty much was raised at a Santa Monica country club.
Mm-hmm.
I remember spending a lot of time when I was a youngster at this country club, but that was so that Dad could be with his buddies. So.
Did you ever have a problem with drinking too much?
I tried.
It didn't work too good.
No, I was not the wannabe drunk. I wanted to be, but in fact, no. I got sick every time I get to drinking. So.
That was a good reason.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it. Wasn't in me.
I had a period in my life when I was much younger, when I was drinking too much.
Yeah.
But not enough to be declared an alcoholic. But I worked through that stage and ended up having a normal life pretty much.
Yeah.
And I haven't drank any alcohol except once a year at Christmas or something, like a highball.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I worked through that.
Yeah, I didn't even have to work through it. It worked through me. Yeah, I tried my best, but it wasn't. They wouldn't have any part of me. So
Did you ever-
alcoholism.
Did you ever experiment with any drugs?
Oh yeah, I think through school we did almost everything there was. Yeah, drug testing, everything there was. But in fact, I didn't find any of it to be too much fun. The psychedelics scared me, so I wasn't doing that anymore. So yeah, no, marijuana was about the only thing that kind of longevity in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I couldn't do marijuana. I tried it maybe 2 or 3 times many years ago, and something about it made me paranoid, and I could never go it. But nowadays I take CBD oil, which doesn't have that other effect, and it helps with my sleeping, and I do it once a day, and I've been doing it now for about a year.
Yeah.
And I think it's very useful, very good.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I haven't really progressed into the CBD section of it. I find that the other effects of the marijuana tends to slow me down a little bit.
Yeah.
So I try not to do that during work hours. But otherwise.
How about any special diet you have, or you just
No,
you're
it's
nice and trim, you're not fat?
well, I gain weight in the winter because I slow down working, and then I lose it during the summer. And this year I've been really fortunate, so I've been working just pretty much nonstop. It's been great. So yeah, I feel like I'm trimmed down a little bit. I was 200 pounds last winter.
Really?
Yeah, 205 pounds.
Boy.
Yeah, I think I'm 170 now, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's about normal. So yeah, back to normal weight.
So, in your work and what you're doing, this house that you're working on now, you're like a handyman in addition to other things to bring this house up to speed.
Yeah.
And how long is that going to take you to finish that house?
Well, I actually have like 4 houses I'm working on at this point, so it's just one of 4. That one, well, there's a process now of ordering windows and various parts I've got to locate first of all because it's an antique house. I've been to the Rejuvenation Center and a couple other places looking to replace parts.
And you know how to do that?
Well, domed windows are one of those things that I've not had much to do with, but I'm getting to a little experience on this one. It's a stained glass window at the top of the house, and it's a finished attic space. It's beautiful, but there's like 4 furnaces up there, so in fact nobody lives up there, and this attic is just pretty much a focal point of the house when you look at it.
Is the roof in good shape?
You know, I just got to look at it last week for the first time, and I haven't been up on the roof yet, so I don't know. From what I saw down below, there's things coming apart. I believe there's work to be done. I don't know how good the roof is.
Well, the people who own that house,
He
they must
just
have
bought
some pretty
it.
good bucks.
He had just bought this. It's an apartment complex now. It's not just a house. I think there's 6 apartments in it. So, yeah. I don't know what condition the roof's in or anything. I was given this job just last week, and we went over to kind of look over the first parts of what he wants done. And that's kind of the facade and the windows. So I've got like 11 windows on one floor to replace. And then we go up from the next floor and the next floor. And so this was just, this week's work was 11 windows.
Well, then he can afford to pay what you need to have.
Well, we're coming across with okay pay. I mean, it's nothing special. I'm not breaking bank on these jobs. I mean, he's a man of various means, but in fact, that's because he's very frugal with what he does. So, consequently, there isn't a whole lot of money.
How'd you meet him?
This is a realtor that I've known for about 30 years, and his client is who I'm working for. So, in fact, I've known the realtor for about 30 years. The client I just met. So I don't know him at all. So
you're never bored, huh?
Never bored, never a dull moment. I run into Dr. Don, and yeah, this is definitely not a dull moment.
Well, we're going to still find stuff for you to do.
Yeah, well, I imagine. It's never a dull, never an end. Construction is one of those things, it's an ongoing event.
Yeah.
I think I referred to it as my life board. Those stages of where you're at, those marks on that board, or you gain this height and that height at this time, and
it never stops, huh?
Never seems to. That board's going to get pretty long.
Yeah. So, do you do anything else for fun, for enjoyment, besides the work you do? And
just fishing. Fishing is truly an enjoyment. There's no such thing as work to that. It's not a job, it's an event. I love being there.
So how often do you get to fish?
Well, it used to be every day. Yeah, I lived on it day in and day out for 15 years.
Did you have a boat?
I've had several. I know when I have too many, when I'm passing one going out and the other one's coming in. And you know you got too many boats.
So what kind of fishing do you do when you fish?
Well, in the commercial end, it was long line and crabbing and salmon. I mean, it was pretty much everything, halibut, everything. We even ran federal gear for doing estimates for salmon estimates. So, yeah, we did all kinds of things in the way of fishing.
So you know how to cook fish?
Kinda.
I'll bet.
Yeah. You know, I never knew you could cook fish in a microwave and have it come out tasty.
Really? I can't imagine that.
I know. It's hard for me to understand, but yeah, a couple of lemon slices on a plate with your fillets on it and your particular rub you might like, and a couple of minutes in the microwave with a plastic cover. Yeah, it's not so bad.
Do you eat rice?
Yeah, oh yeah, lots of rice. Spent a lot of time with Mr. Lee. He's a famous cook down in my area of Newport. And yeah, his whole family is based on rice, it seems.
So you got a real affection for eating rice, eh?
Well, yeah, it was one of the main staples on the daily chart of what to eat at the restaurant. The restaurant being the guy who owned the boat. So it's kind of like after we worked, then we go eat, and that was at his restaurant. And yeah, there's rice is the first thing. So.
You still have an association with him?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just down there a couple of weeks ago and borrowed his nail gun for a job. He has plenty of tools, so I borrow his tools now and then. If I don't have the right tool, I know where to get it.
You have an extended bunch
tool
of
program.
friends, yeah?
Yeah, oh sure. Yeah, yeah. Newport is one of the best docks I've ever worked out of. From Chinook down to Newport, just about done every fishery out of there. You know, yeah, Newport was about the best. Columbia River was where I started, but that's the deadliest. So I found out as a young age that that's not where you really want to be every day.
Yeah, you're talking about where the
Columbia River meets the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most dangerous water in the world.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
You've been in that?
Well, that's where I started at 8 years old.
Going
Going out of that with a 16-foot Starcraft, yep. Crazy, but in fact, that's where I started, so I didn't know any different. We just thought that when it got really rough, you could catch air. And you go fast enough, you come out of the water. So that was our enjoyment, was to catch air.
You said we. Who else is doing that with you?
Oh, there was various people through my life. I mean, you know, the first people I went out with were friends in 6th grade with, and this is 18-foot Starcraft that we went out fishing on. I caught some of the nicest fish back then, but from that I learned to really love fishing. So, yeah, and then I got into commercial fishing when I was 50. I mean, I would gone out before.
A while, huh?
Yeah. Well, if I had known that it was unlimited and I got paid for it, I might have taken the job on sooner. But, yeah, well, you know, do what you can when you can.
You've had an interesting life, huh?
Yeah, I kind of think so. Yeah, I love construction, but the thing I love most is being around people. I enjoy being around people. And in construction, generally, there's a lot of interesting people. Dr. Don was one of them.
Thank you. Well, people, I think, are almost always interesting.
Yeah.
And like I say, all you got to do is be interested.
Yeah.
And start a conversation. And
right.
I was talking to somebody in the gym this morning. We're talking about something similar. And this guy was a sailor, and he was talking about his life growing up. He was in the Navy for a long time. And one of his favorite tricks was to go into a group where there was a bunch of people who tend to be quiet and not conversing among themselves. And he'd deliberately start a conversation. And he says, invariably, if 9 times out of 10, if he started with some obscure conversation and look at somebody, and that person will, and pretty soon he's leaving and everybody's talking among themselves because he started it. So the thing is to be interested, and then the person will be interesting.
Yeah.
That's why when you were working on my house, I found I had to stop talking to you.
Yeah.
Because we'd get involved in conversation, and you'd forget about your drywall.
Yeah. Yeah. How come it's taking so long? Well, it's because you won't leave me alone.
That's right. And you like to visit as much as I do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm chatty Cathy. So, yeah, it's I have to take a few on the chin now and then because of that. People, you know, tend to, well, you're here for something else. We'll have to go on with this at a later date. And that's kind of interesting, but yeah, it's been fun. I've enjoyed my life. But I'd like to see something happen with this handicap thing and the disabled and the homeless. This whole thing is stemmed from handicapped people not getting a fair shake. And the only reason is because we label them handicapped and then forbid them to do anything or be anything. And that to me is wrong. There's other ways of doing it. And I think disaster relief would be a good start. There's 480 million handicapped in the world. And I think the disaster programs that we have around the world would certainly benefit from some help from these people whom we claim to be handicapped.
So you think these people then, you could find something for them to do where they're earning something and they're appreciated, even though they're handicapped?
Well, the thing of it is, most all of their programs are donations. Everything's donated to the handicapped in one way, form, or another. And the handicapped, as it stands, get everything but the acknowledgement that they actually did this. So they get things that they get to contribute, but it's through the Dornbecker Children's Society or many other avenues take the
They need to be appreciated or acknowledged for what
acknowledged
they can do.
Yeah, that's right. The handicapped do these things, but then don't get acknowledged for it. And then it's a matter of they're given welfare and underachieved. The people that put them into places of business, they're not utilized properly,
Yeah.
and so therefore they fail. And then the program which they intend to have help the handicapped fails. And it's just because they don't know where to put these people or how to handle it. So this program I'd like to see get started would be something to help the handicapped, but also to help us. I mean, we want to know how to get rid of the homeless. We want to know how to help the handicapped so they aren't a burden. Worst thing I can imagine being a parent of a handicapped person, taking care of them my whole life, and then finding out as I'm getting elderly that there's nobody out there to help them. That would be so scary.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see something set up so it was not just a welfare thing, it was an actual business that these people could be into, and self-sustaining situation where they wouldn't have to rely on handouts. And that's what I'd like to see happen.
I think that I don't have much research on that, but I think there are some cultures in other parts of the world, other countries, where some of them are doing the kind of stuff you're talking about.
Yeah, well, there's 7 million Mormons around the world right now doing some work on this, and it's nice that they're actually doing some efforts, but they're in a position of, well, they can only help so many. I mean, the
It's
welfare.
a start, huh?
Yeah, well, the welfare rolls only go so far. That's why I'd like to see them be self-sustaining and not welfare.
Okay, you're going to be the boss. Now, what would you suggest that we do? Where do we start to have this kind of movement have more success?
Well, it would be a grassroots event. It would be something you'd have to start out, and I would want to see the handicapped develop it themselves, mainly because, in fact, they know where they need the help. There's 2,000 blind secretaries already trained by various companies, which, in fact, have no jobs. And I believe there's room for them to have jobs. And so, in fact, I think this company, putting it together to do disablement and disaster relief, which, in fact, I think is sorely missing in this country, or in many countries.
Well, there's enough disasters going on all the time, huh?
Yeah. Well, in Katrina, to pick on one, was a failure, epic failure. They spent $2 billion of the $7 billion they were given for aid inappropriately. They froze $5 billion to aid in the dysfunction that they created on the first $2 billion. Well, these are aid money that was given to our disaster relief corporations, and they just fumbled it.
So you had some greedy people who somehow got in a position of power where they were siphoning off most of the monies that were put up.
Well, yeah, they fumbled $2 billion in bad trailers, motel rooms, temporary...
Formaldehyde, the trailers?
Yeah, the formaldehyde trailers, and then they froze $5 billion because, in fact, they were going to have fallout from the $2 billion worth of formaldehyde trailers.
Humans.
Yeah, well, it's just not a good game plan is all.
Well, listen, the time is about run out, so let's let you talk to the camera, that one over there. Some final thoughts about anything comes to mind right now, whatever we talked about, or anything else. Take a minute or so telling the viewers what you want to tell them.
Well, I'd like to see the handicapped be in a position of self-sustainment. This part of welfare for the handicapped, labeling them as handicapped and then limiting their abilities, is just shooting yourself in the foot. It's not getting anything done. They need to be self-sustaining. They need to be self-sufficient, and I believe they can be. The amount of time we spend holding them back, if we'd spent that much time trying to progress the situation, I think we've been far, far beyond where we are at now. And right now, I'd hate to see any cataclysmic event happen as far as disaster, because we aren't prepared.
Right.
And it would be a very heartbreaking thing to see the effects of what will happen during a cataclysmic event. And then the having no fallout, having no preparedness.
We better stop now.
Disaster.
And I am appreciative.
Thank you.
That you came on.
Thank you.
You've been a charming and delightful guest.
Thank you.
And you're going to be over to my house time and again for one more thing.
Oh, you know it.
Oh,
one mark on my life stick.
Now you're supposed to do something for Pat. I think she left you a message.
Yeah.
But
I just talked to her
about
before the show. You forgot your phone.
I know. Okay, let's shut down. You got time for one or two public service announcements? Thank you for coming on again.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Remember, KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind. Be friendly.
I thought that
and
was
be charitable.
Keith Faulkner Construction.
And Kiefer Construction. What is that?
KFC.
KFC, Kiefer Group there. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, and good night.